Committee. It is Wednesday, February 7th, 2024. Do we have a motion to open?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Good evening. We're going to start off our meeting by saying Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so tonight we're going to have 3 budget hearings. The first hearing is going to be from our Animal Control Officer, Rebecca Tomlinson. The second one will be from our Board of Health, Joe Correa. And the third one will be from our Fire Chief, Tom Farland. But before we get into the budgets, Jamie's going to give us a little just a brief speech on our current state of affairs with our budget.
As we addressed in the last meeting, there is not clarity yet on our revenue. But preliminary revenue numbers are around 600,000. And so if that holds true because of the fact that there is only a 0.5% increase into Chapter 70 school aid from the state, which is the equivalent of about $35,000, that until we have clearer revenue figures, the town is going to be presenting level service budgets. And once we have clearer revenue figures, then we will look with asking the Finance Committee to give the selectmen their recommendations as to what true budgets should be. The other issue that we're looking at is we're still waiting on some of our fixed costs, including utilities, and just from your own house utility bills, some of them very recently, how much they've gone up, and insurance bills, that before we get final figures and we look at the whole budget, we're giving an exercise of just having the departments, before we look at any adjustments, present level service budgets.
Okay, thank you. All right, Rebecca, you have the floor.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, my budget is very simple.
This looks great.
Does it look fantastic? The only added expense we had this year going for 25, right, Nick, is the $250 for the Lakeville Animal Shelter, for R&M for the maintenance of their buildings. They're asking that from each and every town that boards with them. So we thought that was fair for us boarding our animals there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, other than that, everything else is level funded.
Doesn't get any simpler or easier than that,
No.
Rebecca. Well, if we have any, does anybody have any questions for Rebecca while she's here? On anything? I mean, coyotes in the town, anything?
Well, it is mating season right
Yes.
now, so there has been a lot of media attention toward that.
Yeah.
So if you do have small animals, even if you do put your larger animals outside, you should be out there with them, because the males are extremely aggressive right now. And they will take any opportunity they can to try to snatch.
I put the spotlight on in my backyard, and even though it's, fenced in, can coyotes, can they like leap pretty good?
Oh,
They-
you could?
they-
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
They're
They're
5
5
6 foot fence, no problem.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And what they suggest is if you do have a fence, it's a rolling mechanism to put on top of your fence, so if they do try to climb it, they won't be able to get over it.
Oh, okay.
And then also, they could dig, but that's mostly for the other wildlife, but you could also extend your fence down and under and out in an L shape. but mostly they'll try to find an object that they can jump on to try to get on the fence, but if you have that rolling mechanism, it's very difficult for them to get over. And so people that are letting their chickens free roam, you know, between the hawks and then the coyotes, which are very opportunistic,
Yeah.
it's just, and I've been getting a lot of complaints about that. But we let them out there and it's a free meal.
Well, good information to know.
I heard the Liberals were against the rolling mechanism.
Yeah, keep our pets safe, right?
Absolutely, yeah, and also,
Tuesday.
licenses are available for 2024, if anyone hasn't licensed their dogs yet, town clerk's office.
I think,
Yeah, just got my son's today. Right on the back.
Are they gonna be mailing out the tags, the
That was
actual
my
tags?
question.
They will be, but they haven't received them yet.
Okay, that's what I
Yeah, there was a
figured.
problem with her previous vendor, so
Yeah.
so as long as you get them in there, you have till March 31st, but just so you don't
Yeah,
receive any late fees from her and citations from me.
yeah, I got the certification, but there was no tag with it, so I figured it's just because they're
They
not there.
they haven't been received
Yep.
yet, so.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, you're
All right.
welcome. Thank you so
Great
much.
work you do.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Have a great afternoon, evening.
Yeah.
You too.
Bye. Bye.
Our next budget is from our Board of Health, Mr. Joe Correa.
Mr. Chairman, originally, the town administrator's office asked the various departments to go through an exercise of reducing budgets, but at this point, the official budget being presented will be the level funded.
The level.
Mr. Correa went through the exercise
Yeah.
and did what was asked,
Mhm.
and the Board of Health did what was asked. And so the budget they put before you was the one we went through that usual exercise of various percentages of reductions, but until we know the actual revenue figures, I'm asking that the level service,
Gotcha.
budget be put before you.
So this could obviously change.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
If you could just review, like, what the definition of level service is, because I know sometimes, you know, what are you including in level
Mandated
service?
salary increases by contract. And no real increase unless it's contractual or mandated in expenses.
So we'd expect to see increases for utilities perhaps, or any
We don't even know
contract, you
those
know,
yet.
right, but, so are they estimating for utilities, or are
I'm
they just keeping
estimating
it
a
flat?
100,000 increase in the total town utility bill.
And that's for, across all departments, okay. Because I know one of the departments I spoke with, that they had put in for an increase in utilities. So I just want to, you know, make sure I'm clear on where that is. Thank you.
So with that being said, it makes things a little easier. So there's been no increase in anything. The only thing that the Board of Health switched around is our nursing contract. You can see that it was $26,000 during the pandemic. We had a little discussion with the nurses, and it became very concerning that we were going to end up spending more money with them on our communicable diseases, which is basically the surveillance that they do. So we've left that at the $26,000, but we've been able to essentially keep it down. It is an open-ended contract, so in the event that something does happen, we're going to owe them more money. But because last year we joined in a shared service agreement with New Bedford and Fairhaven, which is part of the state's Public Health Excellence Grant, which now has conjoined us with the city and with Fairhaven to actually come up with new programs and do new things. And one of the things when we applied for the grant that we wanted to do was get a shared service nurse. And that nurse has been hired. So she has started this year, or last year, starting to develop programs in which we can get the nursing back into the community, doing flu clinics. She did our first flu clinic in a long time, because when the state took the vaccine away from us, we ended up going to CVS's and Walgreens in order to have them come in and do the vaccine. So we didn't really have this really big influence from our own nursing, contractual nurses. But now we're able to bring them back in, and we're doing a lot of talking about how we're going to do even more for the communities and how we're going to do that. It is in the infancy of the grant, and there's a lot to be able to deal with 3 different communities and how we're going to make all this work. But just recently at our last meeting, it was decided that what we're going to look at is restructuring our nurses' contract, so our outside contract, to see if we can get them to spend more time in town with the backup from our shared nurse, which there's more to come. But that being said, that $13,000 has now gone into an old line item that we had, which is medical and surgical supplies, because just this year, and you haven't seen that yet, we purchased vaccine in order to do our in-home vaccinations for our seniors, and also do the flu clinic at the Council on Aging. And that, amazingly enough, is quite expensive. There's a high-dose vaccine that is what is needed for seniors, and I mean, I think we bought 50 vials of it, and it's about $4,000 it cost us. So we're looking at that, expecting that we're going to do even more next year, or this year coming up as we go into it. So we've instead of it being over in the nurses in regards to the contractual amount, we brought it down into the medical supplies so that we can have it there, and then we still have whatever we need as a backup in the event that something goes down with the nurses. But hopefully not, because honestly, with the fact that we share a nurse now, and the fact that we're still contracted out to the nurses, and that's a safeguard, because this is a grant, and we don't want to let go of the contracted nurses yet. In the future, hopefully, maybe we can. But right now, we kind of need all that to make sure that we stay on track with what we're trying to do. So that's what's switched around, but it's essentially the same amount of money that we had, keeping it level, just in a different place.
That's a good service for our elderly population in town. Makes it probably more convenient and easy for them to just go to the Council on Aging and.
We want to do it to the younger population, the older population. We're looking at the model of the city where they have community health care services, places where people can just go, and we want to kind of bring that over here, or some place that's closer to Fairhaven and Acushnet. So we don't have to travel to the city, we don't have to do that, and then man it with a nurse, whether that be 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, where it begins to be something where everybody knows if they need advice, if they need something, they can go there. We want to do that, which is that's what the Board of Health used to do. There used to be nursing hours inside of the Board of Health, and this is the kind of thing we really tried hard to bring back.
The doses, a quick question. The doses that you purchased, do those have a shelf life?
Yes. Yeah, but we only purchased what we knew we were going to use in a flu clinic.
Okay.
And even the city shared some with us. So we didn't take all of the expense because we weren't sure
Right.
how many it was going to be, and it was our trial run, so to say, because we used to do 300 plus people. When we
Yeah, I
did-
thought 50 seemed like a low number.
Yeah, it is, but that's what happened because it fell off. I mean, we used to, when I first got here in 2014, which was the tail end of it, we were doing our own vaccinations, but the state gave us the vaccine.
Right.
We didn't have to purchase the vaccine, which is a whole nother issue. Now, we can get some of that money back, and we're working on that too, because we can bill out through the insurance, which is a whole nother problem, because again, we're trying to figure that out because of the way that we're shared. New Bedford has that capacity, we don't, but we'll get there. And hopefully this will become, maybe we'll be looking at like a revolving account, as this goes on, where we can get the money back from the vaccine, put it in that revolving account, reuse it again. But again, it's a lot to do with 3 communities. We're trying hard to work through it. It just started, and there's a lot of good things coming, hopefully, but.
I think this probably comes into play, particularly if an individual, say, loses their primary care physician, because I think most people are going to get like their flu shot in-house when they go see their doctor, because it's part of your schedule, right?
Yep.
But there's many instances, and I see it sometimes myself, where somebody doesn't have a primary care physician at the time, whether that physician might have retired, and then there's a lapse. So that's where this would come into play and fill the void
Yep.
for that individual.
Yep.
So that's where it would be a good service.
Yep, excellent. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, I did answer it. It's just a real follow-up to the doses. Is it on a priority, like elderly first, or is it first come, first serve?
That's what we did. We bought the high-dose vaccine, which is primarily for the elderly. I believe that I think it's over 60 that require
That
that.
hurt a little bit, but.
Yeah.
I was going cute.
There is another vaccine that's not a high-dose vaccine, that is much cheaper. But yes, we were gonna get both of them, but we bought the high-dose first because the intent was to actually go into people's homes that were homebound. And they were gonna be, seniors, and then do the senior flu clinic. And then there was an expectation that we would do the second round that would not be as many seniors. This is something that Heather at the Council on Aging, kind of knew how it was operating.
Sure.
But we never got around to that second one, which is fine because we didn't buy more. But because again, Christy, which is our new shared nurse, is a busy lady right at the
Right.
moment because she's trying to figure out a program for 3 different communities. So we're trying to get it all squared away. But again, we just got started, so we'll see. Hopefully, it'll be awesome. I really, really am excited. I mean, the whole point of the Public Health Excellence Grant was the fact that during COVID, they realized that the local public health departments did not have the capacity that they needed, and they were underfunded and understaffed in order to produce the things that we needed to do, especially during COVID. Although we were lucky, the Chief Gallagher at the time and all the EMS, everybody stepped up and did what they had to do. On our side, we did pretty good, but throughout the entire state, this is a state grant. They're forcing us, with joining this grant, it has caused all of the health agents and all of the people that work within 351 communities to actually get trained and or retrained again, so that the entire state Board of Health from the local Board of Health side is going to be trained exactly the same way, and they're forcing it upon us. So yeah, I got a lot of work ahead of me too.
What's the deal with like the COVID testing and stuff like that? Are you guys getting any more of the tests?
We just got some, but. And I put them out, and I love Pam all the time. I say Pam, she's awesome because everybody comes into the town clerk, and I put it on the railing over there, and boy, I'll tell you, they go. I mean, they just go.
Well, that's the thing, because now you gotta buy them.
Yes, so that being said, I do have some, but every time the state sends it out and says, do you want some? I say yes, and we get it, but they have a very short shelf life. It's like they're trying to turn over their stock. So I have some right now, they're February 13th. They're good until February 13th. But, you can go past that date realistically a little bit. We've seen it, we've all played with
Like
it.
3 months or whatever, that first batch.
Yeah, as long as the control line is pretty bright when you test it, it's gonna show up if you have to. So.
Any other questions for Joe while he's here? Joe, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
If we have any questions, we'll reach out.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. All right. Have a great night.
You too.
You
Thank
too.
you guys. Doing what you do. Good luck, Chief. And have a good night.
All right, next up to the plate is our Fire Chief, EMS, / EMA Director, It's on file.
Evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm going to start with the very, very difficult EMA budget. The spreadsheet you have in front of you does have the three levels as described by Mr. Kelly. But if we just go off of A, everything's stayed the same. Barring any natural disasters, it should stay that simple.
Sounds good. That's nice and easy.
I didn't increase energy at all, just because based on the last few years' actual spent out of the EMA budget, I felt the level that's been in there the last couple of years has been sufficient. So I didn't want to push my luck.
Yep. Sounds good.
As far as the fire department's budget goes, that gets a little more complicated. I'll begin with the two expenditures, capital expenditures that Mr. Kelly gave you the heads up on last meeting, which is some radio work on our repeater. The current repeater site is at the fire tower on Mendel Road. The equipment there is 30 years old. The gentleman that came to assess it laughed when he took the cover off to look at it. I didn't think that was a good sign, and it's not.
I'm glad it was entertaining for him.
While he laughed, I cried a little. So that desperately needs to be upgraded. It's equipment and it's a relocation. The police department used the tower on Peckham Road at the LNG facility. There's been a spot saved there for us since. We just never moved our equipment over there, but we're at a point now where the equipment needs to be upgraded, so this is the perfect time to just get the new equipment and install it at the new site instead of installing it where it is and then moving it later.
Moving it further north isn't going to impact reception coming towards the city and stuff?
No, because the way the antenna will be mounted, it'll be directed south-southwest to cover most of the town. And we'll be able to bounce off of the antenna at the police station, because they have a voting unit there for it.
Okay.
The other major expenditure, capital expenditure, is on the fire alarm box that we monitor all town buildings and several private companies. About 4 years ago, the department was notified, or the company said that they notified the department that they were ending the production of the box and all of the components for it. When they came to me last May, just after town meeting, it was the first I had heard of it. To replace the receiver at the fire station headquarters and at the police station as a fail-safe in case our station's empty due to being on multiple incidents. For those two units, the cost, including parts and labor, is going to be $105,000 roughly. I'm waiting on the gentleman to get back to me with an updated quote to make sure that we have the right numbers, but it's around the area of 105. The cost for the radio repeater is about 35 to 40, so we're somewhere around the $150,000 point for those two projects. But that brings us current. Does not allow for any lapses in either radio communications with the department or fire alarm reception for any of the buildings.
Are you having any problems with the boxes currently?
There's been as far as the alarm boxes, there's been a couple of issues with the boxes themselves. So it's not so much the boxes that are in the facilities, it's our main reception.
Right.
And there's been a couple of instances where we've had to have some minor repairs done, but because they don't produce the parts anymore, they're scavenging off of old units they've already upgraded to this newer system to be able to keep us functioning until we can get the funding to.
That was going to be my follow-up question. Does it make sense
eBay.
to replace the primary, because we're obviously under quite a budget crunch this year, to replace the primary box at the station and use those parts to update the backup at the police station until we can get a better budget situation?
No.
No. Okay.
Mr. Kelly?
This is right now planned to be taken out of free cash as an article not out of the operating budget,
Okay.
so it would be a separate consideration.
I only say that because both systems are the same age. So we run into the risk of replacing the one at fire station headquarters, and then something drastic happens at the police station and we completely lose.
Sure, I
all-
understand. I'm just thinking
And then it's a middle of the year
from our
reserve
current,
fund transfer
You
that
know,
we don't want to
maybe-
make if we have to do something immediate.
Our deficit is in revenue versus the operating budget.
okay.
And now for the regular fire department budget.
Remind them about getting in the queue. We'll put in our.
Oh, yes, the other article would be similar to what we did last year at town meeting, would be the authorization to borrow for a new ambulance, for the second new ambulance. The two current ambulances, one's a 2016, one's a 2017, they were bought a year apart. So we're doing our best to try to keep that going so that we keep everything constant.
What's the wait time now? What did we wait for in the last one?
The last one's wait time was 32 months. We're still about that. So if we ordered it and we signed off on the paperwork in June, so we're still looking another 24 months
3
from now.
years.
And the newest update from everybody is still 34 to 36 months.
That's crazy.
Absolutely insane.
That is crazy.
You gotta open up an ambulance business.
Making them.
Yeah.
Is the price locked on the ambulance?
Not yet.
Once we get authorization.
Once we get the VIN and the
That's-
chassis assigned to us, that's when they will
Okay.
stop it. That's all for the articles, right? I thought so. No more. For the regular fiscal year budget for next year, you'll see that there are some increases. Most of them are in salaries. The fire chief salary is contractual, the full-time salaries is contractual, the part-time salaries. I put in a little bit of an increase to match what the union contract is, which is 2%, just as a way to continue to provide a COLA for the part-time employees. Because if we don't, then we fall behind and there goes our work staff. And then whatever doesn't get taken by them ends up as overtime, and that's a whole other different conversation that I don't want to have. You will see that overtime increases in this request by $60,000. When I took over, it was 57.8 or 55.8. Last year, we increased it to 70. But working with Nick and the finance team, we've determined that the average over the last 5 fiscal years has been $137,000 that we've spent on overtime. We're probably on track for that again this year.
Yeah, you've been toning out for
And, well,
a lot of
that's a whole part of, that's a whole other part of it. So this would bring us up to where we need to be, which hopefully moving forward would stop me coming to you.
This isn't
Either.
accurate. This isn't accurate.
The 130 is more accurate, yes.
As
Accurate
opposed
and
to the-
transparent.
Yeah, this is where it should be.
And I'm just wondering why it took us 5 years to get there. I mean, last year we had 4 years worth of,
New management.
That's it for the salary side. We left the assistant accountant the same. That's based off of whoever will be in that position and what their steps are and all of that. So there may be some adjustment there, up or down, depending on
But it
what
would be
person
minor.
fills that role, but it will be very minor. Going on to the expense side of the budget, you'll notice that there's some decreases as well as a couple of just increases. Everything's minor. Clothing allowance, we're able to decrease by $3,500. One of the big increases that we experienced this year was contractually, the full-time staff was allowed to have one Class A dress uniform that had not been fulfilled for 7 of the 8. That's been taken care of with the budget this year. So that allowed us to decrease next year's budget and still maintain what they get contractually for clothing. Just based off what I've been spending in vehicle repair and building repair, I increased a couple of them slightly. Building repair by $2,000, vehicle repair by $3,000. We've gotten a better handle on our maintenance in both of those areas. But there's still some costs that pop up here and there that we're trying to keep as minimal as possible, to which we actually have a intermunicipal agreement now with the town of Easton, with their fire department, to do most of our vehicle repair work. They are top-notch technicians, and their hourly rate is significantly lower than any other place that we go to. So that's been able to save us big time. R&M equipment, we don't fully expend that budget, so that's been able to decrease, so that'll help with the decrease in clothing allowance to compensate. I left energy the same. Again, looking back at the past fiscal years, we don't come close to maxing out or going over on our budget there. Fortunately, we do have the solar panels on the roof, so that helps us out a lot with our energy budget. Equipment inspection increases slightly just because we got to continue to inspect all the ladders, the vehicles, the pumps. Everything goes up year by year for the company's costs, so we have to increase that slightly. Software, it's to continue fine-tuning the budget. Instead of having some things come out of membership and dues and some things coming out of this line or that line, I'm trying to make sure everything has its place. So that's why the software line increased by $1,500. Telephone, this is one of those that after we discussed some things, there's a benefit to still having it in my line item despite the town going to fiber optic. This is only for cell phone communications, and this should be offset in technology, as we took over several of the lines that the town was paying. Because we're a first responder agency, we get a discounted rate. But this is my cell phone as the department head, the 2 ambulance cell phones, and an iPad for the primary fire truck. So that would cover all of the costs for the monthly fees for those. Training, this is another one, just like clothing allowance, we don't expend all of the money that's in that line item. So I decreased it to a more reasonable number, and was able to then absorb some of those increases in the other lines. Turnout gear, there's been no change. The program that we instituted a year and a half ago with the article for $40,000, and then with your support, we were able to keep it in the budget as $20,000 to replace 4 to 5 sets of gear a year to keep us compliant, is working great. We only have, at this point, I believe there's only 4 or 5 sets of gear that are close to the non-compliant date. Everything else is incompliant and quite new. So this has been a huge help to us as a department, and then we don't face the every 10 years, 11 years, we got to replace 35 sets at, $10,000 a set. No change to office supplies. Medical supplies I increased by $1,000 only because everything's going up in price, and for the 3rd consecutive year we've broken a record. Busier than we've ever been. We're using more supplies. People are sicker than they have been in the past, so we're using more supplies per call. There's more calls, so it leads to us going through them faster. The pager line item, we've been able to decrease that some. We purchased 10 to 12 pagers. Those are the small units that go to our call firefighters or part-time EMS people so that they know when there's a call in town. We buy 10 to 12 a year. The money that's in the budget is more than what is needed to purchase those 10. So we'll still be able to buy those to keep them up to date with current technology and make sure we have enough, but we'll also be able to save a little money there. No change in oxygen or the medical waste. Due to subscriptions and memberships, I was able to decrease by $2,000. This is part of that, making sure what we're supposed to be paying out of software goes from the software and not out of somewhere else, and we're hiding and playing a shell game. So the net impact is an increase of $75,241. However, I was working with Nick on this, and because a lot of that increase has to do with overtime, we've been able to somewhat offset that increase by increasing what we're proposing to transfer from the EMS reserve account into the general fund to help compensate for the budget. And that it would go from 513 and change to 550,000, so it's an increase of 36. So if you take that off, it's a functional increase of just under $40,000, which is what my estimate was originally. So we were able to keep it right there without impacting too much else. Couple of things to note. On January 1st, the federal government announced that Medicare rates for ambulance companies is increasing 4.7%, which allowed us to then go back and increase all of our rates, because the base rate that we bill to, say, Blue Cross or any other private insurance is based off of how much Medicare pays. So we've been able to revamp that. So that will help make up that $36,000. And I do feel comfortable adding that. Over the past 5 fiscal years, the average EMS income's been, on the conservative side, $630,000. So we've been able to continue to bank some for, God forbid, something breaking or something like that, and not deplete the fund at all.
I have a question.
Uh,
Go ahead.
Mr.
Go ahead, Mr. Kelly.
Thank you. Could you just note, like, the mega money that we got for the defib and some of the other?
I didn't, but I can.
Yeah.
So recently, we've been notified in the last month of 3 grant awards. None of them earth-shattering. Just this morning, actually late afternoon, we were notified by Governor Healy and Secretary Reed from the Executive Office of Public Safety that we received $19,000 state firefighter equipment safety grant. That's the 4th year of the program, so that'll be used to help offset some of the costs that we would normally see in upgrading our equipment that may be out of compliance or broken. We received $1,000 from Mega, which is the insurance company, and that has gone into purchasing an AED for Town Hall. A lot of the town facilities don't have AEDs in place, so we're beginning to work on funding to get that project accomplished. We got $1,000 for that. Unfortunately, an AED is $1,900, so I'm compensating that out of the EMA budget. We've purchased a cabinet for it, so that'll be getting installed at some point in the near future. And then the last grant was a technology grant from South Coast Hospitals Group, and that was in the amount of $2,700, almost $2,800, and that allowed us to replace the laptop computers that we use on our ambulances for patient care reporting. Those were, one of them was missing about 20 keys. It made typing interesting.
That means you guys just didn't take typing back in high school.
Yeah, voice
Shouldn't have to
text.
look
I
at the
didn't-
keyboard, Tom.
I didn't have to type on that.
Well, the message the hospital's getting, the emergency department is, they're probably like, what are they trying to say?
So we've been able to upgrade that with current technology, and it was fully covered by South Coast Hospitals. So.
Question I had for you. You said you're pretty much all set with uniforms, training this year. Does that mean that we're fully staffed?
We are fully staffed.
Okay, so if we're fully staffed, why are we spending $60,000 or $130,000 on overtime?
So the overtime amount, there's 4 factors that play into it. Vacation time, personal time, sick time, and any activity over the full regular duty of a full-timer is at an overtime rate. So that would be any callbacks or any training. When I referenced earlier that we've been busier than ever, that's both fire and EMS. Our numbers are up drastically over the last couple of years. And given today's climate, the daytime hours, which have always been strategically the worst to plan for because it's when most people have their full-time jobs, there's a lot less young people that we can lean on that are home that can respond, so it gets filled a lot more with full-time staff that are on overtime. Ambulance calls, there's been, I can't tell you how many, where one ambulance goes out and then within 10 minutes the other ambulance goes out. It's constant. And that gets backfilled with off-duty. Sometimes it's part-time staff that are available, and sometimes it's not. It has to be full-time staff.
So where's our breaking point about adding another staff member if we're spending $130,000 on overtime that could, I mean, at what point does it make sense
I
to
won't
at least
say
bring
no
one
to
in?
extra staff, especially if it's like a dedicated daytime person that's in the office that's there so that there's extra help.
Would it be cost
That's-
effective? Would it cover itself for what we're spending in overtime?
Because I don't know exactly what the number is on the benefits part of it, I can't say for sure. That would be Mr. Kelly.
It'd be interesting.
Benefits and retirement, and the fact of what we're dealing with, I would rather keep the numbers here and expect the overtime. Because if you add someone, and then you add the health insurance, and then you add the retirement, and when you're almost looking at double the salary when you finish with everything, and including additionally, they'll be earning time off, having sick time.
I just wonder where
Yeah.
the cost effectiveness comes
Ju-
in.
don't think-
Just
I
the
don't-
base
I'll take your,
salary.
just, when the number's that large and it
Yeah,
has been for
you
5
have to ask the
years.
question, you have to ask that question.
Just the base salary, not counting any of the other employment benefits, is
Yeah, so
$61,000.
it's more cost effective just leaving it the way it is. He's got a full complement of
Plus, it might
people.
not, it might
Um,
not just, might not take 60,000 out of the
No, no.
overtime, right, because it all depends on timing.
Well, it would have to take 130 to be effective if we're covering for benefits too.
But if you bring in a full-timer, that's not to say you'll eliminate all the part-time, all of the overtime, because of just the timing of when that's gonna take place, right? So it'd have to, yeah, I think at this threshold, it still makes sense to just do overtime.
I would absolutely take more staff, it's just,
I don't think this is
I don't
gonna
think
be a
it's,
Tom.
I don't think it's gonna help with the 130 in that
If
budget.
you
that
saw
line.
an overtime budget of 180 to 200,000, we should be investigating it.
That was my
For
question.
this
At what
budget.
point does it make
Yeah.
financial sense to do it? I wish all of the departments, we could look at that way and say, you keep asking for all these extra bodies, but
Yeah.
we're not
So
looking
if
at
we
the
had a
overall.
repeat of 2023 where actual overtime was about 172, 173, if on a consistent basis, then we reevaluate. That makes sense.
Quick question, and I don't know, maybe it's for Mr. Kelly more than you, Chief, but, the AED gonna get installed, is there training provided to town people for CPR and first aid? Is there anyone trained
So
on it?
I can come in and give a quick training to the town hall staff that would have access to that
I'm
unit
just,
on the 40 hours a week average. I will tell you the unit that was purchased. The second you open it up and take
in
the
the
package of
oh, I
pads
know,
off,
I
we'll
teach
tell you
it.
exactly what to do.
We walk you through it.
And the new workers' comp, et cetera, insurance company, our group, Mega, will work with the chief to make sure training's provided, and we will be applying for money from them.
That's great. That's good.
Once we get the AEDs in place, then we'll keep hitting them for more money, because they are very open. It's an entirely different philosophy.
Their mindset is different.
Yeah, and they provide comp for, it was started by a group of schools. So I'd say 60% of the members are school districts, regional school districts. 40% now are cities and towns. And it's a very different mindset than going out and dealing with the prior Cabot Risk group that is more of an insurance company, grab the money and run.
I think it's great. A fellow partner, his life was saved because one of those was right next to him when he had a massive heart attack and somebody used it on him, so it's great. Hopefully it can save somebody else.
We had a similar situation in Hope Park, wasn't it? Something recently? A kid got saved?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely a big advantage.
Mhm.
Chief, thank you. Excellent work. This is a, great, realistic and fiscally responsible budget that you presented to us. And, we thank you.
I wish I could have more to do more, but can make it work with what we got.
All right, if we have any questions, we'll reach out.
Anytime.
Thanks for coming in tonight, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too, Sam.
Mr. Kelly, anything else you want to add?
I think the one issue that is hanging out there that I think both the Finance Committee and our office, meaning Nick and mine, are waiting for is to see if there's any request for the Finance Committee reserve on the litigation that the school was involved in. And that's the only issue I know hanging out there right now.
Do you know if there's like a deadline on the payment of that?
They haven't communicated to us yet.
So we're not like adding,
Incurring interest.
yes, interest to the balance or anything like that.
They're not communicating
Okay.
on that. It'd be nice if they were able to do it within their budget this year, but
Just because if we pay for that out of our reserve fund, that's gonna deplete our reserve
Half.
fund in half,
yeah.
right off the bat. So, I mean, I don't know how comfortable I am with that.
As I said, it hasn't been presented to you, it hasn't been presented to management, and it hasn't been presented to the Board of Selectmen, so when the school presents it, it will have to be considered by this board.
They did ask in one meeting that I was at, how we'd
Yeah.
like to have it paid. But that was it.
It was brought up, yes.
It was brought up and how, I'm sorry,
Yeah, they brought it up, but they,
but it has no official, yeah, it was
Right.
just in conversation.
Yeah, I think, the options are gonna, reserve fund, I guess, is an option. Not the greatest,
Free cash.
perhaps an article, somewhere along those lines.
I'm not sure philosophically if an article from free cash would be appropriate. I think it's more of an operating budget type of thing, a legal line issue.
I guess the question that I have is, it was embedded in the budget to begin with, right? And it just wasn't expended? Does that sound right?
In
So
the
was-
past,
In the past, right, and so in the year in question, which was 20,
I can't answer that, but I'm sure Nick could do some research to see if it was part of a turnover at the end of the year.
that's the question, yeah.
So just theoretically, if possible, let's say we did take the funds from the reserve fund, and, we're getting closer to town meeting, we see that the reserve fund's getting utilized a little bit, could we have an article presented at town meeting to replenish some of the funds back into the reserve fund?
Well, the reserve fund goes year to year, so by the time we're in town meeting in June, we should have a pretty good idea what we're doing.
Okay.
It's not like in other years when you had an early town meeting. We're lucky this year that the elections and everything caused us to push it back to June, because that gives us an opportunity to see hopefully what the state's going to do, or a clearer idea what the state's going to do. The legislature's going to do with the governor's recommendation.
Quick question. Do we know anything more with regards to the retroactive police contract agreement? Is that addressed?
As far as we're looking at a funding source for the
Okay, so it's still being worked at, then, it's still being looked at.
The lawyers are finalizing the wording of the MOA.
Okay, all right.
The four corners have been agreed to by the parties. Details are with the lawyers as far as the commas, periods, crossing of Ts, dotting of Is.
Okay.
All right, any other questions for Mr. Kelly? Or Nick?
I think we should get Nick a name plate too. And
You only have to be about 18 months.
Do we have it in the budget for that?
It
That's the
is,
question.
it's Dell.
I think I'd even contribute to it just to embarrass him a little bit.
I'll contribute, as long as we can make it neon and have it flash. I'll pay for it.
Uh-huh.
There you go.
We'll bring in a
I'll
can and
install
put
it.
change.
There you go. We got it covered, Nick, don't worry.
Appreciate it. Okay, is there any old business that anyone would like to discuss? New business? Okay, seeing there are no old or new business to discuss. We have some minutes to approve from the meeting of December 13th, 2023. In attendance was myself, Eric Chu, Bob Ferrera, Kristen Flynn, and Mr. St. Jean.
Motion to accept. Motion to, you were not here.
That was not.
Yeah. So
Absent was Sue Delgado, Pete Benoit, and Eric
And
McGlynn.
there's a couple spelling errors in there, but other than that.
So we have a motion to accept. And is there a second? Would somebody-
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, minutes are
We
approved.
abstain.
Kathy, you got all that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, next meeting is gonna be next Wednesday, February 14th, Valentine's Day. So everybody come in with some kind of chocolate or something, I guess, right?
I like caramel.
Bouquet of
Okay.
flowers,
Maybe I'll make
you know.
those Andy's mini cheesecakes I was gonna try.
Hello.
Even though the heart's appropriate, I've noticed that they also have the chocolate bunnies available.
All right, we're scheduled to meet with Council on Aging, Library, and Golf. So we got 4 departments coming in next week. Most of them should be relatively easy, and should hopefully go smoothly. So far, so good, this year. I think everything's going pretty smooth.
We don't have any money.
Once we get a little bit of clarity on what's going on with revenue, we might have to revisit all of these budgets.
Well, just, so all the departments out there know what we're up against. I mean, we're probably up against, what, a $1.3 million deficit?
I'd say right now, $1.5 to $2 million deficit, because we only have $600,000 revenue stream. However, Nick and I have noticed a couple anomalies recently that, as far as input from various departments concerning revenue, and we're going after those. And then we're waiting on the state.
Listen, Mr.
Well-
Kelly, I'm gonna pay my fee for the extra trash barrel tomorrow, I promise you.
Yeah, I hate to do that too.
Then we're all
I
set.
know,
And I'm gonna pay my dog license.
I have to have it.
Oh, then there goes the deficit.
There we go. Look, I upsold.
It's
She's gonna
expensive
buy
barrel.
the extra barrel.
Yeah, I can get it.
Motion to adjourn?
We have a motion to adjourn, is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are adjourned.